Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who is currently driving a large vehicle over a bridge that I'm trying to get him over. It's David Thompson.
Hey, what's up, Mark? How you doing, brother?
Good. So, Dave here, I worked with him for years in Comic-Cons. We traveled all over the country, didn't we? We did some Toronto. Yeah. We've been to other countries.
We've been places.
Yeah. We've seen things.
We've seen things. We've been places. We're war torn.
We look off with a dead stare in our eyes and we say we've seen things. We've seen lines that no one else has ever seen.
Oh my God, we've seen social gatherings unlike anything before. Yeah.
We've herded many people.
Yeah.
But during all these trips, Dave recommended this movie to me called Sorcerer. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to watch it. I was like, I don't want to watch some sword and sorcery movie. And you're like, no, man, like. It's a remake of Wages of Fear, directed by Friedkin, with Roy Scheider, made in '77, that got totally ignored when it came out.
Oh my God! Well, first off, yes, been a fan of this movie for a long time. I highly recommend it. And by the way, there's going to be spoilers, so if anybody hasn't seen this movie, watch the movie first, and then listen to this podcast. But it's basically, how can I describe it? It's basically William Friedkin's Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, his malaria vacation.
It was a passion project, and it was so fucked up making it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, it was just like more Apocalypse Now. It's just everything went wrong. In that movie, you had Martin Sheen get a heart attack in the middle of filming. I mean, production was stopped and started. This is the same thing. This is exactly the same thing. And if you haven't read his biography, The Friedkin Connection, it pretty much covers his entire career in his own words, and it's a good read.
Yeah, excellent read.
But this movie these aren't good people.
No.
Now, these are anti-heroes, but these aren't good people. These are,
these covered in dirt.
Oh yeah, totally. It was just, but it's just you're rooting for them, but everything is, not only on the screen was life tough, but behind the screens. I mean, I don't know how much you delved into this movie. Everything I picked up. Matter of fact, I watched it again this morning before you called, and there's a few things that I noticed, but one of the things I didn't notice before was on that truck, the Sorcerer truck. By the way, both these trucks have names that are in this movie, and they're almost characters themselves. It was Sorcerer, and then
Lazaro,
yeah. Which would be Lazarus, rising from the dead kind of thing. But the Sorcerer truck, I don't know if you noticed, painted on the hood of the truck is almost the exact same devil that was in The Exorcist.
Oh wow! No, I did not notice that.
Go back and watch. It's right before they start their journey, and they'll pan to the name Sorcerer on the truck, and then they'll pan to the hood, and painted on the hood is that devil from The Exorcist.
That's what it is. Oh, the opening scene there in Sorcerer is kind of what you're talking about. That symbol.
Yeah. Well, that's an Aztecan symbol. Yeah. So the whole thing kind of has that weird devil. I mean, it's a cursed movie.
Fate, can you avoid fate? Is it, you're fated for this? There's a lot of those themes. I love it.
Yeah, no. In his bio, he basically said that the whole movie is, there's a quote in the film, the French wife quotes saying, "No one is just anything." And that's basically the way Friedkin looked at this. That was the premise of the movie. No one is just anything. And it's so gut-wrenching to watch, but man, that bridge scene.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's so many scenes in that movie, but it's just, oh my God.
I try to stay away from hyperbole, Dave, but while watching this, I kept telling my wife, Megan, this is one of the greatest scenes ever. Megan, this is amazing. Megan, watch this. And so she's watched it with me twice. But I mean, they have the 4 different stories, which they didn't do in Wages of Fear. They have these different vignettes. They get there. There's a massive oil fire, and these 4 dirtbags have to drive 2 badass trucks through 200 miles of jungle with every obstacle imaginable to blow up these oil fires. But along their way, they go over the worst bridges. They have to go through the biggest trees. There's like gorillas. Like it's just a gnarly picture. And let me tell you something. When I was watching this for the first time, and I've worked on film sets before.
And me too, by the way.
Yeah.
not in a capacity you have, but I've seen a few. You know, the Quentin Tarantino comes to mind, one film. But yeah, go ahead. I'm totally there.
I wouldn't have wanted to work on this, Dave. I mean, 50 people had to drop out because of sickness. Five production managers.
Well, he got malaria.
Yeah, he got malaria at the preview.
At the end of the movie, when he went back to L.A., I mean, he was well. Here's the quick story. The one thing he said that ruined this movie was Star Wars. The film came out. Star Wars came out in '77, and this came out in '77. But the funny thing, and it actually is in his autobiography. Apparently, the movie premiered at Grauman's Chinese Theater, and they just, they moved Star Wars. Star Wars had already ended its run, and so they put Sorcerer in there, and it did so badly that the theater pulled it out and put Star Wars back in. Mm-hmm. It's just like, add insult to injury. It's just, but I mean, it's a great American film. And the thing that I like that I guess it was just too ahead of its time was, the country was Star Wars, had Star Wars fever. And here comes a movie where roughly the first, 20 minutes is in languages.
Yeah.
You're trying to put all the stories together, the pre-stories, all these characters. And they're all, you have subtitles and you have, things. And it didn't really start getting into the action part of it until the actual oil well blows up. Mm-hmm. So it was a hard sell. I mean, it just wasn't something people wanted to see at that time. But, man, it just holds up, just like Apocalypse Now. It just holds up as a great film. But, yeah, you're right. There was so much. I mean, it was cursed. You're right. Half the people got sick, but did you know that they had to move the location? Originally, I think he wanted it in Ecuador, and then the Universal wouldn't pay for it. So he finds some spots in the Dominican Republic, and it's perfect.
The river dries up.
The river dries up. Now, that bridge is as much as I love that scene, I guess it got ruined by reading a lot of how they made this movie. Because that thing just looks so purposely rickety. I mean, you don't know how they could have built something, but that bridge cost $3 million. And then they had to move it because the supposedly, river that floods that area dried up. So they actually had to disassemble it and move to a little
Mexico.
Oaxacan village in Mexico and reassemble it there. And then that river starts to dry up. And then they have to divert some water into the river. And then they had to use rain machines and helicopter blades to create the wind blowing on it. But yeah, during that production, according to him, there was an undercover federale in this town. And he comes to him one day, and apparently he was an extra. And nobody knew he was undercover. And he turns to Friedkin and says, I need to talk to you. Half your crew is on drugs, and I'm going to arrest them if they don't leave the country immediately. And Friedkin's just like, what the fuck is going on? So he literally had to go to his crew and send half of them home for fear of going to jail. I mean, that's how serious it was on that. And so that puts him, behind schedule on that. And then on top of that, he leaves after wrapping to go see the start working the editing in LA, and he has to fly from Mexico to El Paso. And on the flight, one of the stunt crew catches a lift with him, and the stunt man has pot in his luggage, and now he's being almost going to go to jail because of this stunt man.
Yeah.
And then, he finally gets released and goes to LA, and then, he gets malaria after, the film premiere. So, I mean, this guy was, just an incredible film, but God, what trouble to get that.
It's a crew killer. I mean, if you think about the miles of, so the generators, I mean, if you're bringing lights out there, those lights need power. So you're running hundreds of feet of cable, hundreds and hundreds of feet of cable. You are there's a scene where Roy Scheider is in some water, and I'm like, he's infected with something. That's not, I don't think that's makeup on them. I think that's like legit scabs and blood and mud. Like they didn't have to do hard makeup. So the crew, man, imagine driving into this jungle. They all stayed in tents driving out. It's a crew killer. And no wonder these people were on drugs. I mean, this is I mean, not always it's it's the 70s.
Well, no, but it's still, it's just, I mean, it was Hollywood in the 70s. I mean, that wasn't unusual, but you're in Mexico and you're on their turf, so it's not,
Yeah, it's just one of those tough things. But I got to tell you, this is one of those movies, and I've talked about a decent amount of these on the podcast, where I love it when a director's at the height of his powers.
Yeah.
And he gets a blank check to make a movie.
Yeah. Well,
you're right.
So he came out of French Connection and The Exorcist, and he was the golden child in Hollywood, and this was his passion project, and the studio let him do it. But yeah, you're right. This was a career killer for him.
I mean, yeah, you get directors like M. Night Shyamalan with The Happening. There's various people who have just made hit after hit. I mean, Exorcist is still one of the highest.
In Hollywood, you're only as good as your last movie.
And the thing is, what I find it interesting with a lot of films where people later on sort of blame, the marketing or the studio or the timing. And I know that Star Wars absolutely wiped out the competition. But for Sorcerer, I mean, it's a movie called Sorcerer, directed by Friedkin, and it's not. He made this movie as a passion project, and if you're patient, if you are, if you allow the movie to immerse you in it and you get used to the vibe, you're gonna love it. But I just think, due to expectations and the theme of the movie, it's no surprise that this film kind of disappeared and the studio was pissed off about it.
Yeah, and the thing, I mean, it basically, like I said, it was doomed from the start. Only because he couldn't get his dream team. This was written for Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
And he pitches to Steve McQueen, and Steve McQueen was just chomping at the bits to play, the role that Roy Snyder is eventually played. But I mean, McQueen was in. Yeah. And that would have been right there, the star power alone. And even Friedkin admits just a close up of Steve McQueen's face was worth every problem that was going to happen with McQueen. And in McQueen's case, he just hooked up with Ali MacGraw. And so they just got married.
He wanted her in it.
He wanted her in it. And he goes, hey, can my wife be in it? Because he goes, my wife, I don't want her coming down for months hanging out, in Dominican Republic. And of course, Friedkin even admitted, oh, by the way, so I told you, to continue the story, I saw him live at the Alamo Draft House. A couple of years ago.
You got the poster, Mondo poster signed for me. That's right behind me right now.
Yeah, I'm jealous because I didn't get one. I should have gotten one too, but I was so mesmerized by him. But let me finish this thought before I get into that Q&A with him. So McQueen says, I need a part for my wife, and being the cocky bastard that he is, that Friedkin is at that time, and he had every right to be. He's like, there's only two female roles. There's a French woman, the wife of the banker, and there's an Indian woman. He goes, there's no part for Allie. And so Steve goes, well, then I'm not. Steve goes, well, how about making her a producer? And Friedkin goes, fuck you.
Associate producer credit.
Yeah. And basically, McQueen goes, well, I'm out. And that was like that killed it. I mean, that killed the star power. It was hard for him to get the studio to back him. At one point, he even talked to Robert Mitchum. I don't know if you knew that. Oh. And Marcello Mastroianno was supposed to play the Frenchman. And so now he's lost. And something happened to Marcello that he dropped out as well. But I mean, you had the star power that would have made this movie like knocked out of the park on the first go around. But without the star power, and with Star Wars, it killed it.
Yeah, so before you get to the Q&A, I don't like it. I don't like him saying this because I listened to a screening that they had, and Friedkin, it was like a 50-minute thing. There was a screening in Wichita. They called up Friedkin. He talked. He answered all the questions. He said he was still really disappointed that he didn't have Steve McQueen. But Roy Scheider, man, that dude was a boss in Jaws. In this movie, I bought every single thing he did. When he was working on that truck, I'm like, he could fix it. When he's driving through here, when he is punching the mud, when he is crawling through this most disgusting water I've ever